Hello, viewers, and welcome to Gary Grigsby's War in the East. I'm your host, BBG Chu, and welcome to a Let's Play slash tutorial series. And I say Let's Play slash tutorial because this will be, well, truly an introductory to an introductory series to the game. Nothing less and nothing more. More so because, on two fronts. First and foremost, let's get the obvious question out of the way. What is War in the East here? This is a game that's truly a grand strategy title in the sense that it simulates the World War II's Eastern Front all the way from the very start to the very end on a just a huge map on a momentous scale, all the way from Leningrad up in the north to the Caucasus Mountains and to Stalingrad and the such in the south. And overall, it is just a massive title. So with that said, I mean it's a war game that I've been wanting to cover for a long time, but unfortunately, it's just not possible in the sheer scale of it. This is a game that simulates the air war inside the game. It simulates the land campaign. Obviously, it simulates the weather, which is very important. Given Russian winters and all, and it simulates the production behind the game. It simulates leaders, and it simulates just, oh my god, so many things that just culminate into this wonderful game that it's you can spend hours and hours on, and still it's nevertheless very fascinating in the end. And overall, it's just a massive title. What else can I say really here about it? So it's a very big game. So far I've played, I feel as though, enough about it to be comfortable with the basic game mechanics, but unfortunately the advanced portions and never mind the actual, the meta game, the actual strategy there is a bit off. So with that said, I feel as though I'm more so qualified in talking only about the game's mechanics very briefly here. And with that said, we'll be doing pretty much an introductory series, taking a look at some of the beginner scenarios and covering the game lightly. So with that said, I wanted to stress one point. I mean, first and foremost, this will be a slow-going series, and secondly, chances are is that for the first 30 minutes, aka episode 1 of this game, I'll just be explaining game concepts, because there's a lot to be said about this game, and there's a lot to be said as we go through. So with that said, if you want to get to the action, please go to episode number 2. We're actually now inside this episode, we'll probably doing some. We'll probably do some of the air gameplay there. So let's begin by talking about the scenario here, the Road to Minsk. The Road to Minsk here it's an introductory scenario in the game, in the sense that instead of dealing with the entirety of the front, which quite literally stems from the start of the map line right here. Actually, with Bandicam, I can draw a line on the map that's actually inside a really bad color. We'll make this like a bright red, because that'd be more visible all the way here. And quite literally, the main campaigns to start, you deal with all of that. So it starts off as a monstrously huge game, and it ends up being an even bigger type of thing. Now, okay, good, I can clear the map just like that. This will actually be really useful, because now I can draw my plans instead of just do like gestures towards them. So this scenario in particular, it's a turn-based game first and foremost. It deals with the very start of the war, where the Soviets are caught off by surprise by the Axis, and the Axis are able to encircle huge amounts of troops and destroy just absolutely tons of Russian material, and capture huge amounts of land at the same time. In particular, our objectives for the game, I'm going to clear off all the units off of the game map first and foremost, are to capture the city of Minsk and to capture some of the ending tiles on the current map board here. The Soviets, the AI in other words, are to hold these 4 locations, and in addition they also have a few optional objectives, such as to hold this place over here, to hold this place over here, and to hold this place over here, as indicated designated by the flags. So that is the scenarios at a glance. The Soviet player is just effectively supposed to salvage whatever he has here to form a real defensive line. Was the Axis as Germany. We are to try to advance as fast as we can, whilst not overextending our guys and trying to destroy as many of their troops as possible. So overall, this is a very easy scenario. It's actually more or less meant to be a experimental tool, more so than a scenario on itself. In the sense that if you play the full campaign, the initial portion of the game is very, very important, and anybody can accomplish the scenarios really, even if you don't know too much about the game mechanics. But to do it well and to do it really, really optimally is very, very difficult, and it's more so of a high score type of thing like that. So we'll see how far we go. Talking a bit about the game menus here, and to actually start off our first movements, it's very important that you check out your overarching forces at the start of the game. Taking a look at the user interface, the game's tabs are broken down into 3 different functions. Administration deals with saving, loading, and the game preferences. One thing about the game is that it does have a soundtrack. It does have like sound effects for the battles and all, but unfortunately, like just given how my recording program does it, my recording program will record the music and the sound effects at full volume, and they are quite loud in comparison to the options that I've chosen, so unfortunately I had to turn those off. Moving on, there's a whole bunch of informational screens, and these will be very, very important, seeing as how they summarize a lot of the information that you have to rely on. So there's an order of battle. This is the ledger of all the troops you have, and it breaks them down to the different formations and the such. On the side of your screen here, it gives you the total amount of troops you have, the total amount of artillery pieces you have, the amount of tanks and airplanes, and in brackets, it says how many of those things are ready for combat, if you will, there as well. There's a losses counter as well. There's some stuff about production, about how many units your nation manufactures per turn. There's a victory points screen. There's stuff about the weather, which is more important than you think. Once Russian winter sets in, there's also an air doctrine portion where you can set up how you want the AI to conduct autonomous air missions. There's some stuff about reinforcements and the such. There's also a general ledger of all of your troops, and there's also a logistics phase event log. Just a quick tip: if you ever need to figure out why your troops are not doing as well as they should, look in the logistics first. Afterwards, from there's a whole bunch of map filters. Most of these are typically fairly self-explanatory. The ones that we want to toggle on are enemy hexes and fort levels to start things off. So checking out this bottom bar, the unit movements and things inside this game are actually pretty simple compared to most things. You can move your ground forces, as by foot, if you will. Here you can move them by railroad. You can transport your guys using naval transport, and you can do amphibious landings. You have a whole bunch of air missions that effectively say recon, bomb units, bomb airfields, bomb cities, drop supplies, transport air units from one place to another, and also show battle sites as well. And there's also an end turn button there. So that's the summary of your menus and such. You also have a mini map, obviously. And on the side here, we get the date, we get the turn, we also get a motor pool, which is very important because the motor pool represents your supply trucks, and if you don't have enough of them, that will be quite a bother. And you also have some this value right here, the 12, is the amount of administration points we have, which we'll get to later on, and it also tells us a little bit about what weather there is inside this town, and also the ice level, which is currently 0 because it is in the summer right now. The ice level is particularly important in the winter as it affects how well supplies can reach places like Leningrad, which some of you might know that was surrounded by the Germans, and the Russians in the winter transported stuff over the lake right here by driving over it, of course. So that is that. So getting into the actual gameplay portions here, all of our troops are assembled and ready to make the initial swaps of Operation Barbarossa. So let's start things off by doing a little bit of manual air control. And oddly enough, it's probably not a good place to start off the game, but I only know a little bit about the air combat because it is incredibly in-depth. And well, one of the things about this game is that the units inside it aren't necessarily just simulated based upon action points and all that. Each and every single one of these units, if I open up, say, 7th LV airbase here, it's actually simulated down to the individual planes, the individual squadrons, and these planes have there's a whole bunch of calculations, including how far one of these planes physically can go within like the time frame of the turn based upon their maximum speed, and how much they can actually transport to and from the locations, and all of them factor into yeah, effectively exactly how many strikes you get from them. So it's very in-depthly simulated, but the first thing that you probably want to do at the start of the game is, well, you probably want to conduct a few air raids on the Soviets to start things off, and that's what we want to do here. The air campaign is split up into two portions. You can take direct control of your air forces like this, where you actually give them orders to strike one thing. But typically what will happen is that the air forces will gradually conduct their own missions, in the sense that when your land units attack something, airplanes will most likely show up, and they'll most likely help your guys out in taking on the enemy. So long as you have these air bases nearby, they'll try to provide you with support, is the gist of it. And air bases are these units highlighted in yellow right now. These air bases we can move up later on, but for now we'll use them to conduct our initial raids, because we have perfect intelligence on the Soviets right now. Actually, I've set up the game so that we don't have the fog of war, so we always have perfect intelligence on all of the enemy units. So I see a few of these hexes highlighted in red, and these are hexes featuring enemy air bases which we can attack. And the nice thing about No Fog of War is that we can actually take a look at how many airplanes we have, or they have, at these locations. It looks like this is the biggest airfield right here on the river. It's also incidentally the closest near us. So we're going to launch a strike right there, and we're going to see the combat resolution from that. Right. So our guys have just conducted a strike. The Soviets, because it's turn 1 at the very start of the war, we get a straight combat bonus, which effectively simulates the fact that the Soviets are taken by surprise. And what just happened was that our air fleet, composed of a whole bunch of Bf-109s, a whole bunch of bombers and the such, attacked this airfield. 50 of their planes took off to defend. We lost 2 fighters, 3 bombers. They lost a whopping 185 fighters and 50 bombers at the start of the war, and that truly is a big blow, which will pay off well, dividends later on. We're going to launch another strike, and we're going to see what happens, and another 180 fighters are going to be taken out just like that. So that is quite a blow to start things off. And I want to show you guys the in-depth simulation that the game provides. So I'm going to switch a setting titled the message level here to 6, and I'm going to attack this other airfield with a higher message level. What this will do is that the game actually simulates the individual squadrons of planes attacking the airfield, and as you can see, the game is telling us a chronological, a log, if you will, of what's happening. So, squadron of bombers going down. They bombed a whole bunch of planes. These planes are destroyed. Some of them are damaged, and things are happening. It'd take way too long for this to actually summarize as is right here. So I'm going to put the message level back on 1, and that should just summarize it as, yeah, that. So that'll just summarize those attacks into one big thing, aka the airfield was bombed and they lost a whole bunch of planes. So looks like we fully reduced these 2 airfields. This one should have like, yeah, exactly 1 plane left. This one has right around, I want to say like 20, if not 30. So we'll move on to the ones in the north here. Now, this is the part of the game which I'm unsure of is the thing, because these planes have different, well, first and foremost, they start off in different locations, and because of the constraints of time and all that, they can only perform a certain amount of runs per day, or per turn. So with that said, as we gradually use up our airplanes, less of them will be taking off and less of them will be bombing. So as you can see over here, we don't have fighter support anymore. So unfortunately, our bombers went in by themselves. We took 4 bomber losses, but nevertheless, we caused 63 fighters in damages. So it pays off either way. Right. So after all of those strikes have gone through, what can we do? Well, I want to take a look at the summary over here. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, we've taken 100 or so people in losses going off the ground, going off the vehicle crews, I might imagine. And looking in the air losses, we've taken 13 planes, or plane losses. And in that trade-off, on the first few days of the war, we've dealt the Soviets a massive blow, taken off 100 or 705 of their airplanes right there. And taking a look at how many planes that the Soviets have, they only had, I want to say, like 1,800 some planes available. So that is, yeah, quite literally a fraction of their force gone just like that. And now, mind you, they only have 900 some ready out of the 1,100 that they have in total. So that is pretty much the air war at a glance. Going forwards from there, let's take a look at the land units and how we can move these guys forwards and what we really want to deal with them. So how the land war works out is that our units here are divided up into different colored backgrounds on the tiles, which represent that they are part of a different army formation. So all of our units have this gray, or rather, I should say first and foremost, because this is, it's a war game. It's not meant to be a game about tactical units like squads of infantry and individual tanks and that. Your units are simulated by these little like icon counters, as they're called. These things simulate groups of units. They use NATO or they use the NATO identification icons, aka infantry units, are these things with it's a box with an X in it. Tanks are these boxes with circles. Motorized infantry are these boxes with little dots inside them. HQs are HQs. These round infinity icons are airfields. And yeah, it doesn't seem intuitive at first, but gradually you get the hang of it. So how these units are split up is that the game puts units into, first and foremost, army corps, and then armies, and then following going up the chain into high command and all of that. How these typically work is that at the base unit you have things like this. This is a infantry division, rather it's a third of an infantry division. And taking a look at this icon here, what it tells us on the side of the screen is how much supplies that the troop is carrying, how much fuel the troop is carrying, how much ammunition they're carrying, how many movement points that they have, and to summarize, how many men how many people are inside this unit, and how many tanks and artillery pieces that they have. There's no real thing that determines your troops' combat values, aside from the fact that each and every single one of these actual units are made up of individual units, as in quite literally there's 114 rifle squads inside this unit or this formation, and each and every single one of these have a calculated strength dependent on other things, and all of these sum up the combat value of the main unit here. So how the army chain of command works here is that individual units such as these are attached to an HQ. The HQ structure differs from the Soviets to the Germans. I only know about the German ones. Effectively how it works is that army corps command units which do the fighting, armies command the army corps, and armies are commanded by the high command structure. As you may have noticed, when I click on a unit, different units are highlighted, and how this works is that whenever I click on unit, the thing that I have selected will be highlighted in purple. The icons in the same command formation, as it were, on the same level as it will be highlighted in yellow, in the sense that all three of these infantry divisions are subordinate to the same army corps. So that's what that means. And if I highlight the Army Corps, you'll see that more things are highlighted in yellow, and that means that, say for example, in this case, these two Army Corps locations are subordinate to this actual army, which is further up in orange, as you may have noticed once again. So one of the things happens is that when we select army or army corps and armies in general, their subordinates will appear in blue. At times, their subordinates will appear in red if they're out of command, which is a very important game concept, and I bring that up early just because it makes like I bring this up early more so because it's a very intuitive thing to understand right off the bat. More so because when I move a lot of units, people then won't be asking, or people that won't be wondering why I move these guys, or like what is the order I move them in, simply because that says that's more so of what I base things off of. So going one step forwards from there, and I know this is a lot of talk for the beginning of the game, but it's very important to have an idea of why your units are fighting the way they are, rather why they are not fighting the way they are. Going in depth onto one of these units, we've already seen that they're composed of all of these troops and all that, but the specialty thing about them is that you can actually attach smaller units to them. So what that means is that, I mean, in strategy games, your main core force are usually supplemented by other units, and you can pretty much replicate that inside the game, and it's actually a very big portion of the game. So I can pick support units to attach to one of these guys if I know that they'll be doing they'll be doing one particular activity in which these support units might come in handy. So for example, if this infantry division was doing some in-city fighting or some urban warfare, I might want to attach some pioneers or engineers to them with flamethrowers or the such like that to help them out. And likewise, if they were taking on some particularly fortified location, I might want to put some assault guns and some stuff like that onto them. So it's a very important portion of the game, but it's not only, but more so it's at a command level than say at an actual unit level. And what I mean by that is focusing on these army HQs. Army HQs serve, there were, to the best of my knowledge, three different purposes. First and foremost, they are part of the command structure, obviously. Secondly, they provide supplemental stuff in the sense that they can provide or they stockpile supplies and spare units which they send to the actual combat units. In addition, they funnel supply to units, which is a really big thing. And furthermore, they are composed of the supply element, but also the support units themselves. And what that means is that each and every single one of these HQs will have a whole bunch of these attached support units. Typically, we won't be messing around with the support units in themselves because the AI inside the game, the tactical AI, isn't dumb. If they see us trying to make, like, say, a major assault, the HQ will take some of these, say, howitzer battalions and some of these pioneers, and they'll automatically assign them to the divisions underneath them to be used inside that conflict. Once that battle is over, abstractly, those howitzer battalions and all those things will be taken off the field. They'll be going back to the HQ, and they'll be diverted somewhere else when needed. It's pretty much the gist of that. The reason why we want to talk about this early is because it's very handy to know about these units, and it's also very handy to know that what you can do to manage these support units is that you can have up to 6 inside a battle, and what these HQs will do is that to try to amass as many as the same type as your support level here. So for example, when you have a support level of 3, it'll try to give us 3 howitzer battalions, or 3 artillery battalions in general, 3 pioneer battalions, 3 construction battalions, and such like that. What this will allow us to do is that it'll allow us to manage this so that certain areas will have less support units than other support areas, which makes a great big difference in the fact that you can truly concentrate these units where they're needed in a much more, say, intuitive and fast fashion than that would be otherwise. So now that we've gotten all of this out of the way, let's begin moving some of our units inside episode 2. So I hope to see you guys there. Bye bye for now.